There's a truism. Kennedy promised to sign civil rights legislation with the first pen that crossed his desk if he was elected in 1960. By like the summer of 1961, black people are sending thousands of pens to the White House from across the country because that motherfucker lied.
Mm,
Nixon is far, far more liberal than anyone would ever want to discuss. And
absolutely.
Kennedy is far more conservative than people want to realize.
Yeah, but we talk about it soon with it. It's because Kennedy's handsome.
Yeah.
Gentlemen, today we
Hey,
continue our conversation on contested, bullshit, close, or otherwise ridiculous elections. We find ourselves in 1960 with a world full of turmoil after World War II.
oh
We are
yeah,
looking at the Cold War all around us.
Eisenhower's great claim to fame is he got us out of one war and kept us out of another, like kind of survived in the midst of a Cold War. I mean, there's this whole like catastrophic belief that we're just a little bit away from a nuclear reality. I mean, this is like a transformative decade in so many ways that we just kind of fold into Leave It to Beaver in suburbia.
Yeah,
right.
because that's the propaganda of it. Is that was the idea behind it. So people have, I feel like, a false memory of that's how it was, but that's not how it was. That's how TV was in the 1950s because that's what propaganda was pushing.
So you got Brown versus the Board of Education. You've got real racial tension. I mean, this is a decade of Rosa Parks. This is where Martin Luther King Jr. announces himself. There seems to be progression, but there's this constant tension. And I think Kennedy realizes it. I mean, Strom Thurmond and guys like that are active in Congress. So Kennedy does reach out through his brother, Robert, to MLK Jr., the black community, and make some really direct promises around civil rights intentions if they support his candidacy. And that's going to come back up because this is a contested election, a really controversial election, which is why we picked it, right?
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah. But Kennedy makes a lot of promises that, in retrospect, were largely bullshit. I mean, there's a truism. Kennedy promised to sign civil rights legislation with the first pen that crossed his desk if he was elected in 1960. By like the summer of 1961, black people are sending thousands of pens to the White House from across the country because that motherfucker lied.
Mm,
Nixon is far, far more liberal than anyone would ever want to discuss. And
absolutely.
Kennedy is far more conservative than people want to realize.
Yeah, but we talk about it soon with it. It's because Kennedy's handsome.
yeah. He
Handsome,
got
got charisma.
I'm gonna
You
give you
can
a big
speak
word. You
well.
ready? He got pulchritude.
Ooh.
Pulchritude, like the quality of being fucking handsome. He got pulchritude.
And it's the 60s seem like a huge movement for just like a young generation. There seems to be uh a counterculture. I think every young generation is a counterculture to the previous generation, and that's just how things have worked probably since the dawn of time. And how much political power when the boomers turned 18 and there were so many of them, that's a huge market of voters to turn to potentially.
The trajectory of Richard Nixon's political career is dizzying and important. Don't forget, he lost presidential elections, senatorial elections, I believe. Like he lost before he won ultimately, but he served in so many different roles. Goldwater really helped Nixon. Like he helped to push that party into a place where Nixon was able to sort of get it and then adjust and then garner support from such a wider swath of Americans than the Republicans had been doing under Eisenhower.
There's beautiful things that he did in terms of like preserving nature,
Yeah, the
conservation.
EPA,
Yep.
Clean Water Act, Most of our modern environmental protections come from Nixon's administration.
And it's interesting what you get remembered for. And maybe if, there wasn't TV, he would have fared better, looked a little bit better. And then people may have remembered him a little bit sharper or differently.
Yeah, and if he hadn't gone out drunk, lying, and racist in his final days.
That stuff's real bad, man. They have everything.
Those tapes are like, oh, don't play those.
Dude, they have so many. It's not like, well, I was mad that one time. I was like, bro, dude,
you didn't have a bad day. You were just being you.
Yeah, we just recorded you.
FDR commanded the radio and utilized it to win 4 elections. Kennedy dominates the screen because of his handsome presentation. Kennedy came along at the perfect time.
Yeah. Well, you could crop out his face, but that, them commercials like Kennedy, or however that went, those were nice.
Yeah, I mean, and he's married to Jackie Onassis. I mean, so if you juxtaposition Pat Nixon and Richard Nixon with John F. Kennedy and Jackie Onassis, you're talking about the past and the future in 1960.
Before TV, you could have like a stump leg. You could, you could be droopy and shit. You could have never shaved, and people didn't know.
Cauliflower ear.
Exactly. Exactly. People didn't know.
Do you think he was more better looking because of the makeup he wore for the televised airings? I mean, that had to play a little bit significance in it because Nixon looked a little pale. Maybe it's because of his injury and no makeup, but
come on, man. Nixon got big nose, big ears, little face, especially young Nixon. Nixon looked like a little squirrely. Like there was things that affected that, like the makeup, but he wasn't gonna help. And Kennedy has other things. He has money. He's also well-spoken, well-dressed, has a beautiful woman by his side. I mean, these are the things that demand looks as a total package. It wasn't even Kennedy; it was the Camelot. It was the whole fucking deal. And how you gonna beat the quarterback? And then you're like, this guy's like, I was the vice president. It's like, dude, that does not demand authority.
Yeah, which again, props to Richard Nixon. That motherfucker don't quit. He just kept going and going and going until he couldn't go no more. But Tim's right. Kennedy is in, I believe, SoCal prepping for this debate. It's the first televised debate in the history of American presidencies. So he's got his tan on. He does have, I don't know if it's a makeup artist, but he's got somebody, coaching him in that vein. He understands green screens or backgrounds. Kennedy's suit color was purposely chosen. Nixon looks like he has real tree camo on. Like he blends into the background and he's sickly. Like he's sickly. Like he looks horrible. So if you listen to this debate on the radio, which many, many people did who did not have a television, Nixon crushes. If you watch this debate on television, did you see John F. Kennedy?
Right. Isn't he dreamy? Yeah.
Kennedy obviously had makeup on. It's TV. You got bright lights hitting you. You're going to want to be a different color than white. I talk about my wife. I have pictures that if I'm next to the sun, part of my head will just disappear and it'll look like I got like no head right there. And I look like that. And the photos are ridiculous. So yeah, man, you're probably gonna have to put some tan on you. What were some of the challenges you had early on trying to get the nomination from the Democrats?
I'll jump. He's a devout Catholic from Massachusetts. So not only is he Catholic, he's a Massachusetts Catholic from a really, really wealthy family. He beats LBJ and Hubert Humphrey in the primary. LBJ sort of decides, okay, I'll take the VP spot, which is normally not a good move, but he lucked out. I'm sorry. And I think it was 1949, there's a best-selling American book called American Freedom and Catholic Power. It's about how Catholicism essentially is a cult. Like a lot of people in America feel like Catholics are cult members. They worship the Pope. They're not trustable. So for Kennedy to win the nomination, I think he wins the West Virginia primary, which kind of solidified that people will look past that Catholicism,
Yeah,
maybe.
because obviously heavily Protestant down in that area.
Yeah. But
But
no, it's a big deal, man. It's a huge deal. Anti-Catholic Americanism is a real thing.
and Richard Nixon is going to be a front runner in the Republican Party.
Just to give some sort of respect and reflection on that man's name. So out of California, he served on the HUAC committees originally, House on Un-American committees, like trying to hunt out communists. Snitched on some people. He gives a speech early in his career called the Checker speech. He's been accused in California of accepting payments, bribes, sort of Ulysses S. Grant shit from different people. So he goes on either the radio or television and he says, the only thing I've ever accepted on behalf of my constituents is my dog Checkers. And if that makes me wrong and a bad person, I'm a bad person. And so that saves his political career. He goes on to have the kitchen debate in Moscow as vice president that really kind of breaks the Soviets' will around believing that they're further ahead of us, right? And just as a survivor, man, he loses this election, obviously, but he doesn't lose his will to keep trying to figure out like the American public and voter. So I would say the obvious, most alarming reality is the Soviets. And Kennedy's going to run on partially. Look at what the Republicans have done. They've let the Soviets get into space. They've let them militarize the planet. Technologically and sort of scientifically, they're blowing past us. And that's why part of his promise is I'll get us to the moon. But in this election, I feel like it's definitely about like a ideological and technological race that we're losing. And Kennedy represents an opportunity to get back in the race and catch up and go ahead.
Really, the only question we need to ask ourselves is who would win in a fight between Kennedy and Nixon?
I thought you were going to ask not what your country can do for you, but what can you do for your country? I thought that was what you were going to say.
And then we're all going to sign up for the Peace Corps until it gets defunded.
So we're going to break down some stats. We got John F. Kennedy versus Richard Nixon. Kennedy, 6 foot even. Richard Nixon, 5'10". Age, JFK, 43. Richard Nixon, 47. Slightly older, slightly shorter though. Weight, Kennedy is 165 pounds versus Nixon's 160 pounds. Same weight almost. If Nixon just had a little bit of weight in his face, he would have looked a lot better. The two gentlemen are both in terrible health, guys. Sorry to say. JFK is showing up to the fight in chronic pain, some back issues, probably sick that day. You know, he's got some makeup on. That's going to help, you know?
For photo shoots, maybe.
And then and then Nixon, heart problems. So these guys, they had to sign a waiver before they did this death fight. But who do you guys got, Kennedy or Nixon?
I'm taking Kennedy.
Fuck yeah. Kennedy swam to save his life in war. Nixon, to me, screams Nixon might be the lowest rated presidential fighter ever.
Bottom 20 is the best I can give you right now.
I'm going to say right now, I bet you James Madison could whoop Richard Nixon's ass. Nixon just screams soft. Yeah, Nixon just screams Cali, soft, sickly, small dude.
Yeah. So I hate to say it, guys. I hate to say it. You'll get no argument out of me.
I thought you were going to intentionally go on the opposite.
I can't do it. JFK will whoop his ass and then save him. And then beat his ass again.
And then Nixon would survive and win an election like 4 years later.
Before we get into the results, let's talk about some things that are happening around this time period around the world.
We're supporting really horrific dictatorships throughout Central America and the Caribbean, South America because they're on our side. And like I mentioned before, you've got the French in Indochina trying to keep communism at bay, and Vietnam is about to show that. I think it's Dien Bien Phu is the battle where the French just get their asses whooped, that we've got to jump in if we're going to forestall communism there. So,
Yeah, we're gonna force it out right there. It'll be
well, I'm like I said, forestall, like just slow it
oh, okay
down.
for so okay. Well, yeah, for sure,
Yeah.
Yeah, we're definitely probably gonna give that a go.
We're gonna give it a shot. And and last thing, you got the entire continent of Africa erupting, calling for independence. 1960 is the date where I think like 20 something African nations gained their independence. I want to say Ghana is the first in 57. So you've got this whole like pushback against colonialism and imperialism on that continent too. So there's a lot of shit going on as 1960 approaches.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you got to be on the record with all this stuff. I mean, the Soviet sphere is expanding. I think it was 48 when Churchill, 47 maybe, where Churchill came to the United States and talked about this Iron Curtain descending across Europe. And by 1960, yeah, they're kind of trending, man. I mean, Sovietism has its day. During the Cold War, there's few people or leaders that are like, you know what? I don't want to join either of y'all sides. Sovietism, Americanism, not for me. Abdel Nasser is one of them in Egypt, and there's a price to pay for that if you don't pick a side. So there's like a dam project, as in blocking water on the Nile, that he needs money to update, and he goes to the United States, and they put like conditions on loaning him the money that involved, I think, U.S. troop installments, allegiances, and so he says, "No, I'm good." And then he goes to the Soviets, and they say, "We'll give you the money. We don't care about that." So he takes that money and updates Ozdan Dam. It starts with an A. And so the United States takes that as a total like unification of Egypt and the Soviet Union. When in fact, I would argue he's independent. He's trying to build Egypt and keep like the Muslim Brotherhood and radicals at bay within Egypt.
Hard to be neutral in the Cold War.
I think we briefly talked about the space race, but that had a significant play in this time period as well, specifically for the technological push through both countries. Very crucial.
Hey Tim,
Yeah.
how do you train a Russian dog to land a spaceship?
How?
You don't, bro. Rest in peace, Russian spaceship dogs.
Yeah.
So who gets to deal with the Cold War, all the mounting tensions, civil rights movements, turmoil at home, and the Twilight Zone, the winner of the 1960 presidential election, John F. Kennedy?
Doesn't have a long run, but he wins. We romantic. You said it, Camelot. Like we romanticize that family, his election, etc., etc. But I don't know if he's like the type of dude I want to teach my son to be. Uh, he's got a lot of closet shit going on there, and like I said, amongst black folks, man, he lied. I mean, he sent his brother to Birmingham to talk to MLK in jail, like support us, and we will give you some civil rights legislation. And it takes LBJ to do that. So I don't respect him in that vein. And obviously, multiple proven incidents of infidelity. I mean, dude was on some shit.
One of the things that's interesting about the election and potentially a contested part of it is the popular vote. The difference in popular vote was almost nothing. It was a little over 100,000 votes for the whole nation. In the end, Kennedy kind of mopped when it came to
Electoral
votes.
But you got to give him credit. He wins a swath of America from the Midwest. I think that's only Nevada out west he won, but he won Texas, parts of the Southeast. It's a really fascinating Republican Democratic map to look at 20 or what 40 20 65 years out.
Yeah.
Like we gravitate towards individuals who have pulchritude, charisma, style, articulate presentation. Like, who doesn't want to vote for somebody that they're like, yo, they got their shit together?
Exactly.
Well, I
Like
was in
250
Punxsutawney, and the groundhog said it's going to be cold as fuck.
Yo, you know Staten Island got their own groundhog? He didn't see his shadow.
There's actually a lot of groundhogs. There's one out in Ohio. There's a lot of like localized groundhogs. But I went out and I seen the immortal groundhog, the 138-year-old groundhog.
That's cool.
Tony Phil.
It's
That's
really,
pretty cool.
how old is it?
He's immortal, Tim. He's 138. It's been the same groundhog since the first one in 1886.
Okay.
Can we clarify this? That motherfucker a woodchuck.
Oh, he's also a gopher. But if you said any of those things in Punxsutawney, they probably whoop your ass.
Well,